Before watching Lena's inspiring journey, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share the part of the story that most touched you in the comments. Remember, even if you make 1 point, you will be a voice and a beacon of hope for millions. This struggle is even stronger with all of our contributions, and with yours. Now let's listen to Lena's courageous story. Silence beneath the ground. The sun burned the cracked soil of Africa like sweat on a tired woman's brow. The sky was azure, but its interior was muffled. It seemed as if even the sky itself felt Lena's heart. Lena walked barefoot on the dry ground. A jug was on her head. She was going to fetch water, but in reality, every step carried the weight of the past. She was a 15-year-old child, but her eyes were as heavy as a 40-year-old woman's. All the way, her inner voice remained silent. Why is it always us? Why are we always silent? Why do we have to grow up, even as children? Her mother had been sick for 3 days. Her younger siblings lay hungry. Her father had died in an accident in the fields last year. Since that day, Lena had become not just a sister, but the pillar of the family. The village well was a 2-hour walk away, but what was truly distant were Lena's dreams. Once she had wanted to be a teacher, to give hope to children, but now even words seemed distant to her. The silence of that night. That night, her mother's breathing had become even more labored. Lena was praying on a bare rug, but she didn't cry. One didn't cry when their tears were exhausted. Lena had learned that early on. A whisper rose in the darkness. "Lena, you can't leave this village, my girl. That's fate around here." It was their neighbor, Mrs. Adeola. She had brought medicine for Lena's mother, but her words were heavier than the medicine. Lena bowed her head, but a voice rose within her. "No. Fate isn't silence. Fate isn't chains. I will change me, my mother, and this land. One day." But that day was far away. Those who couldn't go to school as Lena passed the village school. A group of boys were playing. They all went to school. She could only watch from a distance. School was considered a luxury for girls. She had an old notebook. The pages were worn, the edges scribbled. Every night, she would write her dreams in that notebook, even if no one heard. It was her secret weapon. One night, she wrote in her notebook, "My name is Lena. One day, I will break this chain of silence. Not just for myself, for the other girls, too." The first crack. That morning, a minibus arrived in the village. With colorful fabrics tied to the roof and posters in the windows, it excited everyone. A dark-skinned woman with determined lines on her forehead stepped out. Her name was Nala. She worked for an NGO. She had come to the village to talk about women's rights, child marriage, and education. When Lena first saw her, her heart clenched. For the first time, she had seen a woman stand so upright. And for the first time, she had witnessed someone who looked like her walking with hope. Nala spoke. There was no storm in her voice, but there was a conviction that could move mountains. "Your silence makes others struggle further in the dark. Even a word from you can change a life. Girls should study. Women are strong. Lena, you will be strong." Lena said nothing that day, but that night, she wrote only 3 words in her notebook. "I will be too." The Civil War. But change doesn't always begin from the outside. It begins from within. Even Lena's own family was against her dreams. Her mother said in a weary voice, "School? Books? What need do you have for a daughter? Tomorrow we will give you to Abiola. You will marry." Abiola was a 35-year-old man. He had 3 wives. He was looking for a 4th. Lena's heart turned cold. "No. No, this can't be my destiny." But her mother continued through tears. "There's nothing I can do, Lena. I have to feed ourselves." That night, Lina picked up her notebook and cried for the first time in a long time. But then, in a whisper, she whispered, "Esther's voice. Amara's struggle. One day, I too will be a voice." End of chapter. Note: this was just the beginning. Lina would not be the beginning of a destiny, but the beginning of a revolution. She didn't know it yet, but the first step she took would lead not only to her freedom, but to the freedom of thousands of girls. I have something to say to you. Write the sentence or emotion that touched you most in this story in the comments. Even if you leave a dot, it will be your voice in breaking these chains. If millions resonate together, this world will be more livable. Because the next story could be on your street, belonging to someone speaking your language. Don't say, "It can't happen to me." Lina thought so too. The wind blew differently that morning. As the dust danced across the barren land, a decision dawned in Lina's heart. She was afraid, but silence was now synonymous with death. The escape plan. The night before Lina was to be married to Abiola, she ran to Nala's car. Her feet were bare, her skin covered in scratches, but her eyes were shining. Nala took a deep breath when she heard Lina's story, because this wasn't just Lina's story, it was the story of thousands of girls. "I want to come with you," Lina said in a trembling but determined voice. "Get me educated. Help me. But first, my sisters. Don't let them live like this here either." Nala took Lina's hand. "We won't just save you. We will wake others with your voice." That's when Lina's journey began. First day in the city. When Lina saw the city lights for the first time, she almost closed her eyes. She didn't know if such a bright, vibrant place would accept her. She stayed in Nala's office. A small room, a bed, and a desk. But to Lina, that room was a palace, because there she could breathe freely. But freedom wasn't easy to come by. On her first morning, the women in the office gave Lina a notebook. "Introduce yourself," they said. Lina managed only 3 words. "I'm still here." The first trauma returns. 2 weeks had passed. Lina had begun to read a little, was helping in the kitchen, and was smiling at the other women. But one night, darkness returned. Her nightmare felt real. Abiola's voice was in her dream. "You can't escape, Lina. I will find you." Waking up drenched in sweat, Lina pressed her hands to her knees and cried. For the first time, she cried like a child. Nala entered her room. She didn't ask anything. She simply sat on the floor and touched Lina's shoulder. Sometimes we think the darkness will never leave us. But Lina, the darkness is afraid of us. You don't realize it, but you're walking towards it. First speech. A week later, Lina attended a small meeting organized by the organization Esther's Voice. There were women there just like her who had learned to defend themselves. When it came to Lina's turn, her voice trembled. But finally, she said, "I kept quiet. I kept very quiet. But someone came to me and said, 'You shouldn't be silent.' And now, my voice can be the voice of others. I am Lina. I am not a victim. I am a warrior." The hall fell silent. Then applause erupted. Another young woman, her eyes filled with tears, hugged Lina. "You spoke. Maybe now I can speak too," she said. Lina and Amara. After the meeting, Lina received a letter. From Amara. "Your courage gave me hope. Together, we can do more to break the chains." At that moment, Lina realized this wasn't just her story anymore. This was the new echo of Esther's voice. Another reason to leave a comment. Which scene in this story touched you the most? Which step Lina took, facing the darkness, reminded you of something? Write a sentence, a word, even just a period in the comment. Because Lina's voice may one day break another Lina's chain. And the voice of that chain may begin with you. Remember, you're watching this video because something stirred in your heart. Share it, write it, spread the word. because if millions walk together, that path will be forever bright. As Lena tried to adjust to her new life, her past felt close at hand with every step. As she walked the city streets, she sometimes turned to look back. A shadow, a familiar voice, a threat. Perhaps it was only in her mind. But once a person was hunted, even freedom could sometimes feel like a trap. The breaking point. One morning, news arrived at the Voice of Esther office, and Lena's hands turned cold. Abiola was free. Insufficient evidence, the voluntary marriage defense, the vulnerabilities of the local system. Unfortunately, these had become thorns in the path of justice. Lena held her head in her hands. In that moment, she was a child again. A frightened, lonely, broken child. But this time, someone was with her. Nala knelt down and whispered at eye level. "Running away was easy, Lena, but you chose to speak. If you remain silent now, he will win." Lena's first interview. With Nala's encouragement, Lena was invited to a radio program. For the first time, her voice would be heard without showing her face. The next day, Lena received a message on her phone. "Your place is still here. This escape will end one day." The number was private. But this time, Lena's hands didn't shake when she saw the message. She simply took a deep breath. Then she sent a recording of herself. "I'm not running anymore. You can't silence me, because I'm not alone anymore." The presenter asked, "Why are you talking now?" Lena replied, "Because I've lived through it, because I know that darkness, and because no one ever said to me, 'You are precious.' But now I want to say this to every woman. You are precious. Your voice deserves to be heard." At that moment, thousands of women listened to that broadcast. Some cried, others remained silent. But Lena's voice left a mark. That week, Lena gave a speech in a small village for a 14-year-old girl who had been forced into an engagement. Before she went on air, her knees were shaking. But she closed her eyes and remembered her own voice. "I am not a victim. I am a warrior." She took the stage. There were only 30 people in the hall, but among those 30 was the young woman. When the speech ended, the girl took her mother's hand and said, "I want to be like Lena." One night, Lena came face to face with someone from her past. Abiola's cousin was in town. He was loitering in front of the office, threatening. Instead of panicking, Lena grabbed the megaphone. She stood up with the women waiting in front of the office. She shouted in the street, "The darkness will not intimidate us. We will no longer be silent. The more you threaten, the more we multiply, because we are here, and we are not alone." Hope rising in wounded soil. The first rays of morning sunlight barely filtered through the dilapidated window of the village house. The warm scent of earth hit Lena as she stepped into the room. But this morning, she neither welcomed that scent with love nor felt the peace of the light. For within her was a sadness and a hope that swept like the wind. Abiola's return had turned her life upside down. But the Lena of today was no longer the Lena of old. Now, there was strength in her soul. She bore scars, but her courage was greater. The hope that filled her wanted to blossom like a flower on every ground she stepped on. Looking behind that voice, that morning when she arrived at the Voice of Esther office, the sight she encountered was both familiar and unfamiliar. Volunteers were working. Some were making coffee, others were organizing documents. But in everyone's eyes, she saw that voice they were searching for, Lena's voice. No one wanted her to be silenced, because she wasn't a story in itself. She had become the cry of millions. Lena listed the women in the office one by one. The determination in her eyes was a vow to replace the fear in their hearts with hope. That day, Lena was in attendance for a special meeting. An NGO official was to negotiate for an international fund. Their projects focused on providing economic support, girls' education, empowering young women to start small businesses, providing psychological support. Lina read the list, but unlike everyone else, her eyes didn't glaze over. Because she knew this wasn't just financial support, it was a manifestation of courage. This wasn't about hiding the wounds of the past. It was about empowering them to heal. She spoke during the meeting. In our village, girls aren't forced to study as punishment. It's their right to learn. They have a path to the light. We didn't just dream this. Now we're making it a reality. At that moment, everyone in the room stood up. A woman wiped her tears. A man put his hand to his chest. Because they saw it too. Even in pitch darkness, a sprout could sprout. Fear that comes in a heartbeat. But every light that comes with hope also magnifies the shadows. That night, Lina received a message. Anyone who brings us hope must be silenced before the end. You are the target. Lina's heartbeat quickened. The hot breath of fear rang in her ears. The door seemed to be slowly opening. But this time, there was will within the fear. A voice of no had settled in her soul. Nala held her hand. They become stronger when they think you're silent. But one step from you shakes the earth. Moving forward despite fear is life. In that moment, Lina didn't sleep. That night, perhaps for the first time, she spoke to the stars. Hear me, I'm here. In the morning, instead of making breakfast, Lina stood in the hallway. Her hands clenched into fists. It came to her. Today is my stage. Everyone there fell silent. Lina picked up the phone and shared her own recording. I have rights. I have dreams. You have rights too, and you can walk toward your dreams. I'm here. I've been silent. But I'm no longer one of those who remain silent. She shared it. It went viral on social media. She didn't speak out loud, but the impact was immense. She laughed like a child, because she was finally giving way to the voice she'd hidden behind her fear. An 8-year-old girl had watched Lina's video in a classroom. Her small hands pressed against the table. I want to be like Lina. Lina watched the video with the women working in the office. No one spoke, but a raindrop lingered in every eye, because sometimes hope just waits. Lina sat in the back of a pickup truck that was driving through the dusty roads of a small village. A thin layer of dust covered her face, but her eyes still carried the fire of the past. This time, she wasn't going for rescue, but for remembrance. To the land where her Aunt Mirembe, whom she'd left behind years ago, whose life she no longer knew existed. That was where her unfinished story began. While the truck's tremors shook her body, something else shook her mind. The memories that flashed before her along the way were like childhood pictures clutched in her chapped palms. After everything Abiola had done to her, she could no longer trust anything related to blood. But there was still a voice within her, a muffled yet profound call. Don't leave your wounds alone. This parched land outside the town, those stone houses struggling with drought almost every season. Everything Lina knew of her childhood was buried within those stone walls. And now Lina was returning there, not to find closure, but to confront and explain. When the truck stopped, Lina didn't get out immediately. She placed her hand on her knee and bowed her head. She took a deep breath. Stepping into it was like digging a grave. But for her soul, it wasn't a grave, but the ground of rebirth. A woman appeared under the trees, old and frail, but her gaze held the weight of life. Mirembe hesitated when she saw Lina. Perhaps she struggled to recognize her. Time changes people's faces, but even time struggles to recognize pain. Lina, is that you? The woman asked, her hands crossed over her chest. Lina nodded silently. Thousands of words had accumulated inside her, but she couldn't utter a single one. Mirembe approached her, her eyes filled with tears. I thought we lost you that day. I prayed constantly, but no one said anything. Lina bowed her head, then whispered softly, I lost myself too. 4 years. They both sat silently on the stones. Only the wind spoke. The minutes that passed in silence revealed every broken piece within Lina, one by one. But those fractures were no longer wounds, but a map. Every line brought her back to this moment. That night, Mirembe handed Lina a small notebook under the lamp. It was an old, yellowed notebook. Your mother's diary, she said. She left it before she left, and I've kept it for years. I didn't know when you'd come, but I always believed you would. When Lina picked up the notebook, a heart beat in her palms. Her fingers trembling, she turned the pages. The first lines read, If you're reading these lines, it means my blood still lives in the light. Lina, you were my greatest hope. Even if darkness envelopes you one day, a lantern will burn within you. Remember, the sun doesn't rise without passing through fire. Tears streamed from Lina's eyes. That notebook brought back the childhood she'd lost years ago, the future her mother had dreamed of. That night, Lina fell asleep clutching the notebook to her chest, for the first time without screaming in her nightmares, because her mother was still speaking to her. And when Lina woke that morning, she had become someone else. She was no longer just a survivor, but a bearer of light, born from the ashes of the past. As dawn rose, Lina stood barefoot in front of the mud house. In the cool morning air, she felt the dampness of the bare earth on her toes. This sensation opened the door to a forgotten childhood memory. The days her mother would smile as she drank ginger tea on the mat she had spread on the floor in the mornings. The scent of those mornings had come alive to Lina's nose for the first time in years. But her mother was gone now, and Lina was no longer a child. She walked to Mirembe with the old notebook in her hand. This morning, the woman's hands were trembling, her eyes as if she hadn't slept all night. Some pains don't ease with the years, Lina, she said. Only we learn to live with them. Lina shook her head. I haven't fought the pain yet. I've just been silent. But now it's time to tell about the things I've kept silent about. That morning, she went to the village square. She placed the notebook on a small table, and children, women, and elderly people approached with curiosity. Some didn't recognize Lina, and some didn't want to remember her. The silence was heavy. Lina closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I am Lina. Years ago, I was torn from this land. It wasn't just my family that was taken from me as a child. It was my voice. But now I am here, to get that voice back. First, no one spoke. But then a quiet woman stepped forward, adjusting her headscarf. I used to be speechless too. My husband beat me for years. I couldn't tell anyone. But you gave me the strength to speak, she said. After the woman, another, then another. That day, Lina revealed not only her mother's notebook, but the silenced stories of all the women. Tears in her eyes, each began to tell their own story. That square was no longer a place of lamentation, but the voice of resurrection. Mirembe had been watching everything from afar. With tears in her eyes, she approached Lina. Never forget how much your mother loved you, and you are the answer to her prayer, Lina. That night, Lina was with the remaining children in the village schoolhouse. When the lights went out, she lit an old candle. One of the children asked, Lina, sister, weren't you scared when you ran away from those bad guys? Lina smiled. I was so scared, every night, every morning. But then, something inside me told me, you'll never be truly strong until you go through what you're afraid of. That voice brought me here. Another child, her eyes shining, added, when I grow up, I'll be like you. I won't be afraid of anyone. That night, Lina fell asleep among the children. not in the shadow of a dark past, but among eyes filled with hope. Her childhood, stolen years ago, was now being reborn, protecting the future of other children. But Lina knew this was only the beginning. Every voice that spoke in this village meant another chain had been broken. But these chains weren't just here. They were woven by dark hands all over the world. And Lina was no longer a silent child, but a flame, stepping into the darkness. As the first light of morning slowly enveloped Lina's village square, each step became a passionate sound. The air was ablaze, but as it did so, it spoke not to her, but to the world with a fiery hope. That day, a planned march would be held with everyone. Marching were not just actual bodies, but broken hopes from the past, the loving souls of today. Lina ascended the podium, her head held high. Dozens of people stood before her. Elderly people, young girls, children, neighbors. Their eyes held curiosity, hope, and a touch of anxiety. Today, we call upon our village, not just the land, but also our souls to reckon. Our voice is no longer a mere whisper. The Freedom March is a cry for all women. Yellow light shone upon her. The people there knelt. Children joined hands and began the march. They marched with messages drawn on colorful fabric. Don't silence our voice. The right to school is a human right. We are worthy of service, not of sacrifice. During the march, a group of young men carried banners with frequency. Every face seemed a witness, bearing witness to the transformation. Lina took a deep breath as she observed this scene. The change was not a single step, but the sum of thousands. When the village council arrived, the former chieftain stood. His voice was as strong as ever, but his insides had changed. Lina's march was like a drum beating in her mind. I hear the cry of our village, he said at that moment. Our girls are no longer just working for their household. They are the ones who will build the future, just like men. At that moment, a decision was made. Permit morning classes for girls at school. One decision, one life. And the starting point of 1,000 decisions is the noise of a girl's march. But the peace was short-lived. In the evening, men arrived at the village borders, collected the banners, and criticized the march. Some exaggerated, while others feared this movement would escalate into a blood feud. Lina reacted harshly. We want consciousness, not blood. Justice, not pain. Hope, not fear. Her voice was tired, but there was a trembling fire within her. That night, as Lina drifted off, she had dreams, not nightmares. In her dream, fire engulfed the village. But she walked, and everyone rose. The next morning, Lina entered the school gates with a teacher. Little girls raised their hands in the air and cried, "Teacher!" That moment still breaks our hearts. Lina recorded this moment. She took photographs, because now she would show the world. When a girl is nourished by knowledge, even the soil sprouts. In the evening, a campfire was lit in the village square. Old women wearing masks told their stories. Lina picked up her notebook. Today, the soil was still beneath our skin, but now our voices have reached the sky. This square offers peace, like a temple. We will not be free from reset. Our journey does not end. It is just beginning. The village square drew her like a magnet, like steel. That night, everyone wore a white ribbon around their collar to maintain consciousness and the struggle. When Lina went to bed, she dreamed of a village garden. Children were planting flowers. Every mark of land was the line of a future, and the sun rose again on the horizon, for no one was as powerless as they remembered. One morning, in her office, Lina held a letter in her hand. The letter contained lines of hope, written by a young woman from another country, a survivor of human trafficking. "Thanks to you, I have found my freedom," she said. Tears welled up in her eyes. this was the truest reward for her hard work. David had returned from school with new projects and was telling his mother about his hopeful plans for the future. Marcus stood by Lina, his usual silent and strong support. In the home they had rebuilt after dark days, the family was walking toward a bright future despite the shadows of the past. Looking at the camera, Lina spoke in a soft but determined voice. "This journey isn't just mine, it's ours. Every voice, every story can break a chain. Your comments, likes, and shares make this struggle even stronger. Remember, being one can discourage us, but being thousands can change the world." If you like this story, subscribe to our channel and share which moment touched you most in the comments, because your voice can also be someone else's liberation. And if you want to see another story that will touch your life in the next video, wait patiently. Because so many women like Esther's Voice and Lina's Voice will continue to illuminate the darkness. Lina added with a slight smile, "With your support, tomorrow will be brighter. Remember, no matter how deep the darkness, the light never goes out. Now it's your turn. Share the part of the story that touched you most in the comments. Leave a single word, even a single dot, because every voice is valuable in this struggle. Your voice can reach millions and make the world a brighter place. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Together we are strong. Together we are hopeful.